Coming up next, a song that is not all what it seems. For over 40 years, everybody thought this all-time hit was dirty, naughty. It was such a catchy ditty, it became a slogan of the 80s, and it was one of the first major hits where the main riff was from a synthesizer. And from one of the funniest bands ever, I might add. It actually pieces 3 different songs together that were all in different time signatures and different tempos, but the band combined them into one composition. The music video ruled MTV, and it was made for a little over 10 grand. Today, we have one of its co-writers and singers telling us the real story. Find out what the song really means next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you love classic rock and pop, you're truly going to enjoy this channel. Make sure that you subscribe right now, right below, to get the stories from the artists. And if you click right up here, you can see our brand new merch. I'm wearing a shirt right here, Choose Music. We also have a Patreon where you can get rare content, more interviews. That helps us to curate this channel, very important. So it's time for another edition of our series, Revelations, where, of course, artists and writers take us through a deep dive into their greatest songs and greatest albums, and a lot of times you get never-before-shared details. On this episode of Revelations, really excited, we have a pioneer of new wave, the great Jerry Casale from the band Devo. Jerry tells us the story behind Devo's 1980 hit song, Whip It. Which has become a cultural touchstone for so many reasons. When it climbed the charts, it was unlike anything on the radio. It definitely ushered in a new era. It was more than welcome. The iconic music video, it was a fixture of MTV from its infancy, and the song is a definite catchphrase that whenever you say it still brings a smile to anybody's face. Jerry tells us a very entertaining story about the uphill climb to get the song to the masses. He also tells us about his new music, really good. It's a can't miss next on Professor of Rock. Now, as we go into this interview, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses that you see on my face every day. When you go to Zenni.com, you can design your own frames, and then you can actually see how you look before you buy. You use Zenni, their virtual mirror features, really cool. Check it out at Zenni.com. Here's Jerry. Whip It. One of the most unlikely pop hits ever. Went to number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 11 in Canada and New Zealand. When you recorded Whip It, as I understand it, the record label, well, I always want to ask if this is true or not because there's so many urban legends out there in music, but I understand that they were putting a lot of pressure on you to have a hit because the last album didn't sell as much and they wanted a hit. Did you have the slightest thought that that song would have the kind of mass appeal that it had?
While it is true that they sent one of their lower level A&R men out to see us when we were on tour with Duty Now for the Future. And he took our tour manager aside, Ron Stone, and said, "Hey, just got to tell you, the next album these guys are about to make when they come home, if it doesn't have a hit, we're dropping them." All right? Well, he just dropped that on him and let him tell us that. Now, do you think that changed what we wrote? No, because those are the kind of guys we were. It was like, well, him, like, we're not going to try to sound like other bands. Yeah, it just basically, fed our resolve to be us. So maybe it did help us in a way, because by being yourself, your best self you can be, that's sometimes when you do have a hit. But did we think Whip It was a hit? No. Did anybody at Warner's think Whip It was a hit? No. The only song they liked was Girl You Want. I liked Freedom of Choice. They liked Girl You Want, and so they ran with Girl You Want, and it's summarily tanked. So we went out, we started our Freedom of Choice tour. Things looked pretty dire, like they had put their money on red on a roulette wheel and it came up black, and they weren't about to do anything else. They weren't like going to come with the second single. But a guy named Cal Rudman in Florida, who was a big time influential DJ back when DJs had a lot of independence and were regional. He had a tip sheet called Cal Rudman's Monday Morning Quarterback or something. And it went out to so many Parallel 1 stations. And the DJs, he was influential. They listened to Cal Rudman. He had real ears. He really listened to Devo's record. He didn't like Girl You Want, so he listened to the record. And he seized upon Whip It.
It's not too late to whip it. Whip it good.
He started playing it, and he put it in his tip sheet. And then 10 other places started playing it. And by the time we had played about 4 or 5 shows, it had traveled up the East Coast, and somebody at a big New York station started playing it, and all hell broke loose. So we had to stop the tour and retool it, because we were going now from clubs to like 3,000 seaters, or like the Fox Theater in Atlanta. And everything just exploded overnight. And that's what happened.
You started writing the song as an imitation of parodies in the book Gravity's Rainbow. Is that right?
Yeah. That's what I had been reading. And I loved those limericks and poems he was writing, where it was all about basically this con job, like, you're number one, there's nobody else like you can do it, The propaganda that is America, right? And I just would laugh at how clever they were, and I thought, I'm going to try one. So the lyrics to the whole song were written as you hear them. Nothing changed.
When a problem comes along, you must whip it before the cream sets out too long. You must whip
It was amassing music to fit it that was a longer process. And that came from 4 different pieces of sketches over time that Mark had done in his bedroom. They were in different keys, different time signatures. We took them and changed them all into the same key and the same BPM over a beat that we loved, that Alan did, that's like almost like a weird combination of a shuffle and disco beat, right? But it was neither. It was only Devo. Alan was such a great drummer and such an original drummer. And we loved that beat. I think because there was no cynical intent, like where you're sitting there forcing or contriving a hit. I think we were just doing things that we loved that got us off. And that one in particular was very creative. It's very organic, the way it got put together. And then at some point, Mark goes, well, the main line figure I came up with, that's just Pretty Woman with a 2-beat space and then a 2-beat add-on at the end. So instead of being a 4-beat line, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. This is and it's 8 beats. And if he hadn't said it, I wouldn't have picked up on it.
No. I mean, the arrangement for Whip It, as you just said, was constructed parts of 3 or 4 songs, you said?
Yeah, 3 or 4 sketches, not even whole songs, just riffs.
When you were arranging the song, the bass line, the synth, the organ, it kind of had that, even that surf, like the Ventures you were talking about. I can even hear a little bit of that in there.
That's true. You're right.
It's just a potpourri of so many different styles in there. It just gets in your head. It was cutting edge recording because it was one of the first top 40 hits to use a synth as a primary instrument.
That's true.
Now whip it into shape it up.
How did you create, I've always wondered, how did you create the bullwhip sound effect in the song?
Whip.
There's another song that came out a few years after that had a whip sound, and I think it was Kenny Loggins and Steve Perry on a rock song, And they actually took the sound from Raiders of the Lost Ark. They knew the guy that was over sound effects.
On tape, which is everything was on tape. We were in the studio with 2-inch tape. We sampled some white noise time delay. There was a new thing, digital delay. So you put this white noise, and then we took that and played it backwards and put an effect on it. So it's white noise being sucked back into itself with a short plate echo on the end of it. So it's whoosh, because it's sucking back.
Is a powerful whip sound. Well, Whip It was controversial, easy target for the religious to attack, contending that the song was about, masturbation or sadomasochism, or want to get the record straight on what the song is really about.
Well, I learned to shut my mouth when I'd start to do these, we're on tour and you land and they take you to the hotel only long enough to get freshened up. Then you start doing the radio station rounds. Then you go back to the hotel lobby and start doing the interviews, right? Then you go to sound check. Then you play. And you try to get some sleep and you do it all over again. New city, new thing. So I would open my big mouth and tell them what Whip It was really about. And you could just see their expressions go from really happy or really like, hey, you guys, whip it good, masturbation, whips, to like, oh, it's what? It's about you're making fun of all the Horatio Alger stuff, like you're number one, there's nobody else like you. You're making fun of individualism in America? What the hell is that, right? So I went, shh. And we just like, when they go, we just laugh back, like. So that's when I decided that we had to make a video that kind of like, paid off for these guys that think it's about sex, it's about, sadomasochism, think it's about masturbation. So we made the video on purpose to just amplify that.
Well, before we get to the music video, I want to know from your perspective, what does Whip It mean?
It really was just a fun mockery of that whole idea that, this get up and go, optimism that you can beat it, right? No matter what's happened in the past, you can shake it off and you can win, And that's not totally, it's not totally a joke, it's just that you got to take that with a grain of salt if you're a thinking person. But that's what it meant. And of course, it'll never mean that now. It's going to be about masturbation and whipping. That all just came from, again, the stuff we used to collect. I had a book, I think it was Dude. It was a men's magazine from the 60s that I got at a secondhand bookstore. And it had a story about a Hollywood stuntman that had married a stripper from the Sunset Strip. And the Hollywood stuntman had retired, and they bought a dude ranch in Arizona, and people would stay at the dude ranch. But every day of the week, Monday through Friday, he would whip his wife's clothes off in the corral as entertainment for the guests. And that's what you saw in this black and white 8-page article, right? Spread on these guys. So first thing he did is whip the cigarette out of her mouth, whip her cowboy hat off, then whip her blouse off, then whip her fringe skirt off and leave her in her underwear and heels in the corral. And it showed all these guests cheering. And that was it. I go, that's it. This is what we're going to do.
I say whip it. Whip it good.
Devo's going to be playing in the corral, and Mark's going to whip this woman's clothes off while these onlookers cheer. And just fleshed it out from there, so to speak.
Into shape. Shape it up. Get straight.
Now, was the video really made for $15,000?
Yes.
Incredible.
It was made in one day and night, 16-hour shoot in our rehearsal studio that we had in the time. We rented a warehouse with bow truss ceilings. It was about, 1,800 square feet. And it was all shot in there, just using all these backdrops from Western Western costume, and Paramount, rented costumes. Got my friend John Zabrucki, who was really a sci-fi guy, to create the fake log cabin set for us. He art directed it, brought in the hay bales, all that stuff. Found me a seamstress that would take apart Western style turn of the century clothing from Western costume, carefully take it all apart and put it back together with Velcro so that we could connect clear fishing line to the pieces and make it look like Mark's whipping it off.
Try to detect it. It's not too late to whip it.
There's a video that early MTV was played all the time. The relationship between MTV and Devo was complicated, but what was their stance on playing the Whip It video? Did they ever push back at all? Did you ever hear anything about that?
No, we were grandfathered in there because you have to understand, we had 5 videos made before MTV existed. And then the first year they existed, they don't even pretend they existed before 1981 when they launched nationally. And they asked her not, because before then they were experimenting. They went out in 3 cities and they had nothing. They had Video Killed the Radio Star. They had Ashes to Ashes, David Mallet video for Bowie. And they had 4 Devo videos.
Oh, we are men. We are Devo. Oh, we are men.
And they came and begged us for them because they didn't have any programming. And Bob Pittman and John Sykes, who started the station together, took Mark and I to lunch and said, hey, we can't pay you or anything, but we're going to make you guys huge stars. And sure enough, they for that following year, they rotated our videos like constantly, right?
No. Hey, hey, hey.
And then we made that Whip It video in the late fall of 1980. So they added that. And then they went national, and they went nuts, and MTV exploded.
MTV, music television. This is it.
And they still didn't have much programming, but boy, the programming came hard and fast then.
Too late to whip it. Whip it good.
It's not only a classic video from the 80s, but it's become a catchphrase for the 80s.
Yeah, it's like we created a meme before there were memes, yeah.
You did. Exactly. It's one of those songs that just won't leave your head for days, and I never get tired of it. Leave us a comment about Devo, one of the great bands that really threw a wrench into everything. Leave us a comment about this memorable ditty from 1980. What are your memories of the song and the music video? Let us know in the comments. If you dig our content, our videos, make sure to subscribe below so you never miss out on our daily content. We'd love to have you be a part of our community, and make sure to look us up on Patreon, look at our merch. More content, more help. Helps us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. We'll see you soon.